graduate them in such a state of shock, they'll have nightmares if they contemplate squirreling. When somebody enrolls, consider he or she has joined up for the duration of the universe. Never permit an open-minded approach. The phrase Psy-Ops is all the rage nowadays, but that can be subtle and covert or aggressive and overt. Right? So this video here is going to be about the more aggressive, I guess you could say, form of persuasion. And we're going to be looking at L. Ron Hubbard's, that is Scientology, right? L. Ron Hubbard's personal sort of internal correspondences. And this will help clearly demonstrate some of the techniques that like Psy-Ops and really more specifically cult leaders in this case might try to employ. Literally, I drew all this material that you're going to be hearing from only about 5 or 6 pages chosen really at random out of a much larger set of memos the guy was constantly writing, right? So there's way more stuff. If you like this one, I could easily make a ton of videos just off of this sort of internal manual. So I have some of the early texts from the late 60s and early 70s, and that's where a lot of this stuff is coming from, right? So let's start with this. What is the deal with this term Psy-Ops? That's really more of a military thing, psychological operations, right? That's all it stands for. And it's really kind of about how to demoralize the enemy through manipulative skills. And it requires planning, target audience analysis, product design, how best to disseminate the information. I mean, basic stuff like that, right? So I don't think that's, of course, what people mean when they're using it today. This person is part of a psyop or whatever, right? It's kind of become like in the jargon, in the zeitgeist, and is just thrown around. But it is true that a lot of the techniques that might be used in psyops are going to be similar to, say, what a cult leader might use to program people into this certain pattern, right, of belief and feeling. Right? It's really all about ways to persuade or manipulate through expert authority, demoralization, intimidation, isolation, and others. But that's enough to get us going. Right? So let's dive in. I'm going to jump straight in now, and I'm just going to hit you with some quotes. All right, that's what I want to do here. I'm going to hit you with a quote from L. Ron Hubbard, and then I'm going to give sort of my take, just my personal opinion only, right, on what I think that particular quote matches up to in terms of either, a psyop or technique or tool, or more specifically here, really like a form of persuasion that a cult leader would use. So here's number 1. Our technology has not been discovered by a group. True, if the group had not supported me in many ways, I could not have discovered it either. But it remains that if in its formative stages it was not discovered by a group, then group efforts, one can safely assume, will not add to it or successfully alter it in the future. I can only say this now that it is done. So let's unpack that really quickly. What he's basically talking about here is his system. Okay, the system of Scientology. The process of how to go through like auditing people using an e-meter and a whole bunch of other things. So he just wrote a bunch of stuff, and Dianetics being one, right? And it's sort of they're like these religious or spiritual tools or technology, as they're going to look at it, for how to help move someone to a state of being clear. This is not a video, though, on like Scientology and all the terms. There's a bunch of those out there. So if you want more on that, I suggest you go and check out a more like intro to Scientology video. This is about like specific tactics, right, that L. Ron Hubbard used, and the people following him, no doubt, continue. So let's break it down a little more, right? That quote. He's saying very clearly that the technology is from him, right? Classic cult leader move. Sure, there are other people involved, maybe helping me in various ideas or financially or whatever, but it's me. I'm the one that actually came up with it and discovered it. I'm the one that has the unique conduit to God or something like that, right? So what's really going on here is, for in terms of a technique, this is a consolidation of power into an expert authority, let's say. In this case, the cult leader, right? L. Ron Hubbard is really the one who has all of the power in this situation. So you've got to essentially follow precisely what he is suggesting. And if you read what the whole internal memo that this one's coming from, it's literally laying out like, this is why people are failing on it. And you have to follow these 10 things in order to apply the technology, the system perfectly. So there you go. That's our first quote. And it shows a consolidation of power into one man in this case, which is classic, right? Tactic. Second quote. Graduate them in such a state of shock, they'll have nightmares if they contemplate squirreling. You heard that last part correctly. Like squirrel. Squirreling. This idea is like squirreling is anytime you're bringing weird ideas or, anything against the system or the technology. If a student or a supervisor or whomever is trying to talk about and share anything that's off topic or off like what's approved, then you're essentially squirreling. And he's going to make it quite clear in examples. I'm not, I can only show so many quotes, but if you were to look at this full letter, there's a weird discussion about how, like an example of how some guy was squirreling and then he got someone else to sort of maybe think ideas that weren't, on brand. and it somehow this resulted in like physically abusing his wife, which gave her cancer and she died. I don't know how any of that makes exact sense. But I mean, wow, the physical abuse gave someone cancer. But it goes to show one thing: intimidation, right? Without a doubt, this whole idea of like a shock and awe approach, and that you basically strike the fear of God into people so that they don't even want to have alternative thoughts, right? So that's intimidation. And the next quote, third one here, is a great follow-up on that second one. When somebody enrolls, consider he or she has joined up for the duration of the universe. Never permit an open-minded approach. That's pretty bold, pretty straightforward there. You don't normally hear that where people are like, hey, have a closed-minded approach to something, right? You typically do hear that you should have an open-minded approach to things in life. But no, because then you're going to be willing to entertain alternative theories or systems about religion, philosophy, spirituality, right? So, yeah, that's, again, a good example of it's intimidating for sure, but it's really an example of also isolation, I would say, because you cannot have an open-minded approach. It's literally close off your mind into a state of isolation. So always that's going to be leading to a dangerous path, I think. Right? Again, only my opinion on that stuff. Fourth quote. If you don't know something or are confused about course data, ask a supervisor. Do not ask other students, as this creates progressively worsening errors. Right? Now, errors in the data. Okay. Now, I don't really have too much of a problem with that one. There's no doubt there's some truth to that. You're a student, you have not mastered the material yet and all of that. Fine. But it's in all caps. I mean, if I gave you the quote, the part where it literally says, do not ask other students, right? As this creates progressively worsening errors in data, that part's in all caps for a reason. This is something they do not want you to be talking about, like, and questioning stuff with other members that are like students. And that is a very isolating thing, right? Now, this is to say nothing of what we now know about aspects of Scientology, where if you go way off script for too long, they have effectively areas that they will put you like a prison-like almost situation. So they're certainly big on isolation. Just like if you leave the group, you're now literally someone who's a suppressive person or whatever, and they can't talk to you. Your family shouldn't talk to you. Your friends, all of that. I mean, crazy isolation, and the fear of that, the intimidation again, sort of almost terrorizes you into staying in the group, right? So that was our fourth quote. Only one more that I want to give you. Now, don't forget, I said I've got a ton of material I could cover on this. So if you like this video and you want more, I could easily put together, again, just like more of their documents and pulling stuff out that either seems like a tactic of control or just something that seems very bizarre. Fifth and final quote. We are the only religion that can prove all its tenets here and now, not in some hereafter. So obviously that's going against maybe Christianity, Islam, etc. But what is that really saying if we break that apart? We are the only religion that can prove its tenets, period. Let's leave it at that. It's basically exclusivism. This is classic. A lot of religions do this. Like, we are right 100%. It's not like we're 80% right. Buddhism might be 20%. Then we could like have dialogue with them or something. It's like, no. You are a Scientologist, right? Or you are a Christian. It's exclusivism. We have to have total domain and control, right, over the truth. So that's something, again, that's not only Scientology's technique, but they do explicitly state it there, that they have, right? They have this something that no one else basically has, and they can prove it to you, right? So there you go. I think, another great example relating to the auditing, just to kind of cap this off, is something called bull baiting, that maybe you've heard of this if you're into Scientology. It's this idea during the auditing session where you have like an e-meter where you're holding these metal handles, and they're monitoring your response to questions, right? So bull baiting would be like, think about it. You've got a bull and you got the red cape or something. You're attempting to antagonize the person who's going through the session being audited, and you want to get them to a state where they're not going to have some like reactive mind situation. But they do intense stuff. Like, they'll try and pick on whatever are your worst fears. And these are completely like politically incorrect ways. Like, I don't want to give really specific examples, but you can guess if you're, they might do even, who knows, racial things or something, and try to pick on stereotypes, something like that, and see if you'll get a reaction. And without a doubt, that's intimidating. So those are just some of the things that go on. Now, I want to end this video in a different way than I have all my other videos. Just like you may have noticed if you've seen my other videos, I started this one in a new way. I wanted to point out that what really all of this is about on this video, and I'm going to be making a lot more, hopefully, that sort of fit into this pattern. People want psychological security or cognitive security in this era where, you know, everything's a conspiracy theory, right? No, there's misinformation, disinformation, you really don't know where to turn, right? And one thing I'm interested in, because of my background, I have a PhD in religion and philosophy of religion too. So I have a good philosophy and religion background. And why that matters is that it does put me in a unique position to be able to help other people out there that might feel like they are stuck in something that's like a cult, okay? And unlike the thing you typically hear about, like deprogramming people from a cult, I'm not a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist. That's not my thing. And I think that there could even be sometimes potential damage to going through that process, depending on how it's done. What I want to try and like offer to any listeners or audience here is the possibility to, instead of just like deprogramming, to reprogram and repurpose. But what I want to try and do is, I think you need to isolate sort of the message from the messenger. That's critical. That's going to help you to get away from a cult. So a lot of these cult leaders, people think that it's like they came up with all of this stuff. L. Ron Hubbard just said he came up with the whole stuff, right? He didn't come up with all of it. He was a part of a lot of weird groups, magical fraternities and occult stuff and whatever before. And he borrows heavily. And you would only know that if you had the background in religious studies and the occult and, you know, philosophy, right? So what I'm getting at with all this is that I think you can separate the message from the messenger, and then you need to separate the golden nugget or kernel from the larger message. So clearly in some of these cults, there's stuff that are attracting people. Yeah, it might be just a sense of community or sense of security or certainty that comes with, right, the consolidation of power in one figure. But I think that really it's not always that. And there could be little elements in the message that can be extracted. And then I could tell you like, hey, here's where you could take that kernel of potential truth, even though was shrouded in nonsense, where you can extract it and find it in other pre-existing, philosophies, groups that are out there that are healthier, religions or whatever. And so that you can then effectively take some of the elements that you liked, and it's a lot easier to sort of transition out of a group if you know you're not having to like lose some of the core elements that you found most attractive. So that's my long-winded way of saying that if anyone's listening to this and you're interested, please leave a comment. And if you leave something in the comments, I will reply, and, you know, maybe we can talk about this, because this is something that I'm trying to really work on and hone. And it's a way for me to also have a deeper sense of purpose and not just feel like I'm only a teacher at a school. You know, it's a way for me to use my background in a helpful way to like give back to society. So anyhow, there you have it. Let me know what you think, and hopefully we'll make some more videos on this.